Hello, hello, my dear fashion friends. Welcome to a new episode of Redressing Fashion. This is a solo episode. It's just going to be me today. And I'm also hoping that it's going to be a little bit more practical than the last few episodes we've had, which have been a lot about the history of fashion, a little bit about theories of fashion and culture and language and other related subjects. Today, I actually don't want to dive that deep into the history and theory of fashion, and I really want to focus a little bit more on our fashion practices as humans, as individuals, with all of the complexities around really our existence and our practices. I really want to focus on shopping, holiday shopping specifically, but I'm hoping that there's something that you can take away with you today, even beyond holiday shopping. Before going in, I will say that this is an unscripted episode, which is actually something that I love to do. I think I am just a chatty girl and I thrive when I just get to talk about things. I think that's why I love interviews so much. Maybe that's also why I struggle with solo episodes a little bit too, because I feel that a script limits me, but then also it's not as fun to just talk by myself. So what I did today, and it's something that I've done before, so if you've listened to earlier podcast episodes where it's just me, you are probably familiar with the structure. But basically what I'm doing is that I have some notes and a sort of order of go for the day. Hopefully I won't get too sidetracked. Hopefully it'll be entertaining as well. And yeah, the idea here, I think, is to convey the feeling of a casual chat. You know, I love a casual chat. So this is what I'm trying to do here. But these are just too many disclaimers. So let's just dive right into the topic of the day.
Have you ever imagined fashion being as diverse as human culture? Have you ever dreamed of a respectful, ethical, and socially just fashion industry? Have you ever envisioned sustainability being at the core of the entire fashion system? This is your host, Laura Beltrán-Rubio. I'm a fashion curator, researcher, and educator. My mission is to translate scholarly insights into actionable strategies that we can all take to reshape how we create, wear, and think about fashion. So find a comfortable seat, brew some tea, and open your notebook as you join me in the quest for redressing fashion.
And so the first thing that I want to say is that it is okay to shop for the holidays, and I suppose at any other time of the year. That is fine. You have free will, so you can also engage in shopping in whatever way you want. You can shop as much or as little as you want. You can shop responsibly or consciously or mindfully, or you can just shop on impulse and without thinking too much about it. There's literally no judging here. What I do want to do is to encourage you to maybe think twice about how you shop, especially because one of the things that I've realized with, I think, mostly my friends, but then also more recently, my clients, the ones that I am a style coach for, is that impulsive buys and mindless buys actually take up some energetic space in them. They are uncomfortable, they are pointless, but in a way they matter more than we tend to think with pointless things because they bother them. It's something that they could have avoided. And I keep hearing this kind of phrase like, I bought this on impulse and it was kind of a waste of my time and energy and resources and money and everything. So, why did I buy it in the first place? So, I think that's where I'm trying to get to here. Helping you as a buyer, as a shopper, to shop things that make some sense in your life. But again, no judgment. And of course, you can choose to adopt as many of the tips that I'm going to give you here today or as little. And well, there's nothing I can do about it, but there's also no judgment. Trust me on that. And then, well, the other thing that I want to say is that on the converse, it's also okay if you don't want to shop at all during this holiday season, and maybe you are planning on starting a new year where you are not shopping or trying to limit your shopping. Or maybe that's something that you have implemented in your life before. That's something that you have been doing not only this year, but maybe also years past. So that is okay too. Again, in either case, I'm not judging. What I'm hoping to do here is to just share some tips, strategies that hopefully will help you either way. And these are tips and strategies that I have built myself over the years as someone who shops and who tries to shop as consciously as possible. And then also strategies that I have started to offer my style coaching clients, and that I have actually started to write about them more and more often. And in fact, I realized that I have so much knowledge and tips and strategies to share when it comes to shopping, and perhaps more accurately styling, like self styling, self fashioning, that I started recently a new blog or a new section of my blog, a new newsletter, however you want to call it. That's called Adventures in Destyling. And that's where I share some of the tips and the ideas that I work with and the tools really that I equip my style coaching clients with. So I'm going to leave that in the show notes for you to browse through, for you to read and subscribe if you're interested. I've only published 2 articles so far, so there's not a lot there. It's a weekly publication, so you will see more as time goes by. But yeah, if it's of interest, please take a look at it. Please subscribe. It's a new publication, so every single view, every single subscription does help me a lot. And then, of course, there's also my style coaching program, which you can inquire into, and I'm going to leave it in the show notes as well. But anyway, I'm starting to get sidetracked, and we've only been here for what, like 7 minutes? So I'll stop there. Back to not wanting to shop this holiday season. I think there are many reasons why people don't want to do it. There is a growing awareness of the impact of our mindless and rapid, really, consumption and the very short life cycles of products on the environment and on really our planet and our lives, because we are all linked together. So it's not like the environment is suffering and we are here just safe and sound. But the more the environment suffers, the harder I think it will be, and it is already, for us to live our lives comfortably. And this comfortably, I mean it in the widest sense of the word possible. But then there are also other reasons, and I think especially this year, things are tough economically speaking. Finances are getting harder for more and more of us. So, to protect our finances, many of us are probably wanting to avoid shopping or trying to shop on a budget, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. Or maybe we want to limit our shopping this season. And again, this is probably something that has been kind of building up through the year as prices have been increasing, as things have gotten harder, as well, maybe some of us have faced unexpected changes in life and our employment economic situation. That's something that I can definitely sympathize with, as I recently lost my academic job. And, this is also making me think, and this is also something that I'll come back to towards the end of the episode, or at least that's at the end of the list that I have here, And it's the importance of relationships and human connection beyond shopping. And there's actually this scene of Nobody Wants This, the second season that I was watching the other day, where it's Valentine's Day and I forget the names of the characters, but the guy gives this beautiful card and the little jewelry thing to the girlfriend. She kind of doesn't even care, doesn't even look at the card. She's just interested in the present. Whereas for him, he's like, you need to read the card. You need to read the letter that I'm giving you. Like, this is, a romantic thing that I'm doing for you. And so I think, well, on one hand, that probably points to different values, but also it points to how materialistic some of us can be. Like, why do we think we need to care more about the physical material gift than the relationship, than the words that someone has to share with you about why they care for you, why they love you? And I'm not bringing this up to judge or to say that he's right, she's wrong, or vice versa. But really, what I'm trying to point out here is that relationships can be as important as the material things. And the act of caring for and maintaining a relationship, whether it is a romantic relationship or a friendship or, even a business relationship, does not necessarily need a material gift, but it can also be cared for. And, love can be demonstrated in ways that are not necessarily physical gifts that require you to buy. So that's how it relates back to the shopping theme today, and especially if you are not wanting to buy that much this season. And so, going back to shopping on a budget, which I know is something that many of us have to do, whether or not we are trying to save more this year or less this year, or we have the capacity to spend more money or less money than in previous years and in previous holiday seasons. I think in general, having a budget and having a clear budget is essential to avoid some of the mental, I think, gymnastics that we sometimes feel that we need to do when shopping for the holidays. And I think having a budget actually helps us be in a better mental space to buy. That helps us be more mindful about holiday shopping, and instead of just shopping impulsively and shopping for things that we are maybe not going to like or all that much, and if we're shopping for gifts that the people that we're giving them to are not going to like as much. So, as with everything when it comes to finances and budgeting, step number one is knowing how much money you have to spend. I would say go and look at your bank account. Yes, you can shop using a credit card, but you're going to have to pay that at some point. So, how much money can you actually afford to use this holiday season, and start from there? That gives you, I think, the sort of maximum limit of how much you can spend. And from there, you can start kind of building space and building into that budget. I do like to think about it as building into the budget, because when you have this bucket, let's say, that you are going to exchange in a way for the things, or that you're going to fill with the things that you're buying, and you're exchanging your resources for that, then every single thing that you put into that bucket kind of becomes more meaningful, if that makes sense. And that leads me to the second thing that I would say is having a list. It is important to have a clear list of what you are going to buy. So it can be clear in the sense of I am going to buy this very specific object, but it can also be something like I need a gift for my dad, or like this person, whoever it is, but I'm not really sure what that's going to be. And so I say my dad because that's one of the people that I struggle with the most when it comes to buying gifts for him. And so usually it's just like, I need something for him. I know that he likes these things. So he's a big tennis player. And in general, I think he's very much into sports. He also likes tech. Although, because he likes tech so much, I feel that he has pretty much every gadget he wants and needs. But, that is also on my list. Every so often I do intelligence with my mom and I'm like, have you noticed anything that he might be missing? And so I think a couple years ago it was like a good sports winter jacket. And so I believe I got him that. I can't remember if it was for Christmas or for his birthday, but well, they are both in December, so But yeah, so I try to make a list and I try to be as specific as I can with that list. And then I also allocate amounts to that list. So especially when you don't know exactly what you're getting for the person, it's difficult to know exactly how much you are going to spend, but you can have a sort of range. So, like somewhere between this, and that's what I'm going to get for this person. And then the last thing is to actually think about what you are attempting to get or what you want to shop for before actually going shopping. Because I think that's what leads to impulse buys and mindless buys the most, not having a sort of agenda of what you're going to do. And then I must say, there is something to be said about just browsing, window shopping, just going to the stores and, seeing what you find. I actually wrote about it this week in my adventures on destyling. And if you really want to just bring something back with you from those outings, again, no judgment here, that's perfectly fine. You are welcome to. But try to think a little bit about it. Like, is it something that you're just buying because you feel you need to buy? Or is it something that you're going to appreciate beyond this one shopping spree or shopping outing? And there are two additional strategies that I would like to offer here. One, and this actually the name was given by one of my fantastic clients. She calls them field trips. And she refers to those especially in terms of buying clothes for herself. She goes out to the stores, she knows what kinds of things she's looking for. And so she just basically tries on a bunch of things and takes photos of them and reflects on them, and then goes back to her wardrobe and revisits her wardrobe and sees what might work, what maybe doesn't work. And then also in trying them, she gets a better sense of the silhouettes that work, the materials that she likes or doesn't like, sizing, colors, things like that. The second approach is the one that I normally take because I really enjoy visiting the shops, especially since I started teaching fashion styling and communications and like merchandising. I've become more and more interested in window design and retail design, which funnily enough is something that I think I've always appreciated. And the very, very first blog I ever had when I first moved to New York in like 2013 or whatever, I interviewed, I remember, this owner of it was relatively new or like brand new shop on 1 East First Street. I can't remember the name. I think it was like 1E1 or something. And anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here, but I loved doing that. And I remember I would go and like take photos of all the displays and the windows and interview people and stuff. Man, I kind of wish I could find those photos and whatever it is that I wrote about it back then, because I just realized that I'm coming back full circle. Anyway, big tangent, coming back. What I try to do when I go shopping, because I know that I really enjoy it, is make it a sort of trip to engage the senses. And this I published on the blog yesterday as well. I treat it as a sort of museum visit. So I wander around, I take it slow. Actually, when you're shopping, it's even better than in museums because you can bring a little treat with you. So, like a coffee or a hot chocolate or whatever it is that you like, and you can actually touch the things. And if when it comes to like clothing, accessories, I don't know, perfume, things like that, you can actually try it on. So it's like a much better experience or a more wholesome experience than a museum visit. But it's just, you're just wandering around in wonderment on, I don't know if I just made up that word, but, just appreciating the beauty of the things that humans can create. And I think that in itself is a beautiful experience that doesn't necessarily have to culminate in shopping. And it might take a little bit of a mental exercise to convince yourself that you don't have to shop when you go out shopping. It can't just be this experience. But I think it is, first of all, it's very rewarding when you start to do it. And then it's also a sort of mental muscle memory thing that you build because it becomes easier every time you do it. So the more you go out and just enjoy the experience of seeing and trying on the beautiful things, the more you get used to it. And that means, on the converse, that you don't really feel the need to actually purchase the things. And I think that is kind of beautiful. And I also know that I'm not alone in this because this is actually something that I spoke about with Georgia Ennis on the last podcast episode. We were talking specifically about secondhand shopping, but she also mentioned this idea of going out to the shops, looking at things, trying them on, and then leaving them for someone else to buy, which I think is actually a beautiful approach, like leaving this treasure for someone else. And so, well, I know that I'm talking a lot about the physical experience of going out to the shop. I'm not really talking about online shopping, or I haven't talked about online shopping yet, but I think we can also take some of these practices into online shopping. And especially to try to avoid doom scrolling, having that list is very important. And, websites have become more and more intelligent. And so you can filter things according to size, to color, to type of garment, things like that. So even when you don't have a lot of clarity on what you are searching, there are ways of maybe refining it a little bit more to help you avoid doom scrolling and just adding things mindlessly to your cart and then eventually kind of checking out. Now, I've talked a lot about what I recommend that you do when, well, I started this by saying that shopping on a budget, but I think this applies in general to shopping more mindfully. Now, I want to share some of the things that I suggest you don't do when you want to shop more mindfully. The first one is try not to buy because you feel you have to. And this applies to both yourself and others. So if you walk into a store and you feel that you have to buy because you already walked into the shop, don't. So either don't go into the shop, or I would suggest just don't feel like you have to because you don't. I was actually having this conversation with my mom the other day because she was invited to a special holiday showroom of one of my designer friends back in Colombia, and she was like, "Well, I don't know. Like, first of all, I'm supposed to be having tea with friends that afternoon, so I don't know if I will have the time to go in the evening to this other thing. But then also, I do not want to buy. Like, I'm trying to limit my purchases." And I was like, "You don't have to. You can go there, you can show him your support, you know that you love his clothes, and you two get along very well. Like, he's my friend. By extension, he's kind of your friend as well. So it's just a matter of supporting him, and that is okay. Now, if you have the capacity to buy, that's a different thing. But yeah, just don't buy because you feel that you have to. Going back to gifts and continuing to talk about my mom, we have had an ongoing conversation over the years where every time when the holiday season approaches, she's like, "Ugh, I have to go and buy all of these gifts for all of these people because I have to, but I really don't want to." And it just drains her every time. And I'm like, "Well, you don't have to give anything to them, or you don't have to." And she's like, "Yes, I have to. It's my responsibility." And so I think, again, if you are buying because you feel that you have to, that kind of makes it less special. And then in a way, I think that also kind of blocks your brain from actually getting something that's meaningful and that's important and that person will like, because you end up buying just whatever because you have to. And I personally think that giving things just because you have to give this thing without thinking what the thing is pointless, because it will probably end up not satisfying you, or more importantly, the person that you're giving it to. So that is a problem too. And so I will come back to gifting, I promise, later. But yeah, there is an art to gifting, and I think step number one, just like with buying anything else, is thinking about it. Like thinking about what you're going to gift, thinking about what you're going to buy. Thing number two that we should avoid when shopping on a budget or shopping mindfully is don't buy things that you weren't thinking about buying just because either they are cheaper or you saved some money. Especially if you're shopping on a budget, you're doing it because you want to save some money. And so if you free up, so to speak, some of that money because you bought something that's on sale, which a lot of things are going to be on sale over the next at least couple weeks through the end of November and maybe even further into December, then you're kind of defeating the purpose if you're going to end up spending the same amount of money in things that you weren't planning on buying or that you weren't looking into buying. So, one of the things that I see people do a lot is that in shopping for something, they see something else and they're like, well, but it's on discount, so I'll just buy it. And then they get home and they have no idea what to do with it. If it's clothes, they never wear them. If it's a gift for someone, they know that it's not going to be fulfilling. So yes, they might give it, but it's very likely that the other person won't really put it into use. And then all of this results in just a lot of waste. And again, not just waste as in the product is wasted because nobody is using it, but like waste of your time, waste of your money, waste of your energy. So why? Like, why do that? So again, just don't buy things just because they're on discount or just because you've saved money in something else. If at the end of the holiday season you end up with a positive budget, meaning that you still have some money left from that maximum amount that you set yourself to spend on holiday shopping, then that's great. You can save it for next time. You can save it towards something else that you want to buy for yourself, or you can invest it in a more mindful purchase later on. So, just because you have a budget, you don't have to spend it all, consume it all. And then the last thing is, well, I've already kind of covered it, but it's don't buy something just because it's cheaper than it supposedly was before. If it was on your list and if you were going to buy it full price and hoping that you could get a discount, then yes, perfect, proceed to buying it. But if you just see something that's on a discount and you're like, meh, I'll just take it, just don't. Stop yourself. And again, just appreciate the beauty of things. I think that's what I would say is most important. And so, this shopping on a budget and shopping mindfully, I think I kind of linked to them together. In my list, they were supposed to be different things, but it doesn't really matter. I think what they both aim to do is to, I would say, at a personal kind of psychological level, I think what they do is that they help you feel better about buying. And not that buying doesn't make you feel better. I mean, there are psychological studies that say that people go out shopping when they are depressed because they get a little bit of dopamine from buying and they feel excited and they get something new. And, you know, it's just fun to go out shopping and actually buy things, which, yes, but then the problem is when you get back home with something that you didn't like, and then the spiraling starts, right? And so you don't like it. Why did I do this? I wasn't being responsible. I'm trying to save for other things, or, I have to buy all of these gifts. And there I went to just buy something that I don't even like that much. So there is a spiral that comes after. I would say it's more of a roller coaster kind of thing where you get the high of just buying. And then once you realize that that purchase wasn't fulfilling, then you go on a deep low sometimes, and it can be very stressful in different ways. And so by buying more mindfully, we are trying to avoid that kind of up and down, especially the downs, I would say. But then there's also, and if you've listened to me, if you've known me for a while, you know that I am also very much an activist, and like a micro activist is what I would call myself, because I do think that every single decision that we make when it comes to shopping can actually help us build a better world. And so in shopping more mindfully, we are also contributing to the world that we want to live in. And very immediately, that means that you are building your lived reality with the things that you buy. So, whatever it is that you choose to surround yourself with, that's your world, that's your own micro world. So you are building your reality with whatever it is that you are choosing to put on your body, be it that, skin products or clothes or whatever. You are really creating your very own individual reality. But then you are also contributing to the world outside you. So for me, for example, one of the things that's very important, especially since I migrated away from the Americas, is to continue contributing to people, especially in Latin America, and businesses in Latin America to grow. So I do try to avoid buying as much as I can while I'm in the UK, and buy from Latin American brands whenever I'm back there. Or when I'm here, I try to buy from Latin American brands in the UK, which actually has its own implications, because that means that these brands can grow internationally and can, eventually have their own stores here. And more people are going to see it. And I actually love when people ask me about the clothes that I'm wearing here, and I can tell them, well, it's a Brazilian brand or Mexican brand or whatever, but that I can also tell them, like, they sell it in this place, or they have a shop in this street, or something like that. So there's that too. There is an aspect, and again, I wrote about it in my adventures in destyling yesterday. There is also something about supporting small businesses, whether it be just a small independent business or whether it is something more specific that you want to support. So, women owned businesses, for example, or Black owned businesses, Indigenous owned businesses, the causes or the people that you want to support, you can get as specific as you want when buying, and you can shop from them instead of shopping from these massive brands that honestly couldn't care less about you or your business. Whereas for a smaller business, you can actually make a huge, huge, huge difference. So by shopping more mindfully, just as a short recap, you can create your own lived reality, like your micro world, but then you can also engage in micro activism through your everyday choices and contribute more largely to the world that you want to see. And I actually also wrote a blog about this kind of micro activism, which I will also link in the show notes for you to read if you're interested. And it's a short read. And finally, as I promised, we are getting to gifting. And gifting is actually a very important thing for me. I love buying things for people or treating people. It's not just buying like physical stuff that I can give them, but like I love going out for dinner with a friend and paying for it. Or it doesn't have to be a full dinner. Like it can be just like tea, just giving them tea. It can be at home. I don't even have to engage in an immediate transaction to enjoy the giving of something to people. That is, I would say, very much my love language. And this is actually something I found out. Shout out to Tori Dunlap, the financial feminist. She has this exercise where you basically journal all of your expenses for a certain period of time. And when logging each expense, you also log the feeling of it. And I think in doing that is when I first realized, like, wow, I really like buying for other people, like more than buying for myself, which is something that I honestly don't think I had realized before, which was a bit mind blowing because I do feel that I am very kind of self conscious and as in, I try to study myself as much as I can. I've definitely been doing that in terms of fashion for a very long time, but I hadn't realized that about how I spend my money. So, anyway, shout out to her. If you don't know her or you don't know the Financial Feminist podcast, I would recommend a list. And there's also a book which I devoured a few years ago as well. So, yeah, anyway, getting sidetracked again. Going back to gifting. Because gifting is so important for me, I think I am very mindful about what I give to people, and I want it to be something meaningful. But then also going back to these cycles of waste where it's so easy to just buy things that mean nothing to no one and just end up in the trash, basically minutes after or like days after they were purchased. I think there is something to be said about just encouraging more mindful giving practices. And again, I have written about this before. This is a topic that I actually come back to, I think, every holiday season because I have seen just a lot of unconscious or mindless gifting practices that I don't think are doing any good to anyone. So, like, not the people involved in the gifting, not the people receiving the gift. I guess they are also involved in the gifting. Not the environment, not the planet, not no one really. And so one of the ideas that I've been playing around with is reclaiming gift giving as a sacred practice, as a practice of building relationships in a way that it's not just about giving something because I feel like I owe them, but more of a I'm giving something that matters to this person because their relationship matters to me. And in giving this thing to them, I'm also in a way caring for them. And so this idea, of course, is tied to historical practices of gift giving. And here, well, some of you might know that my specialty as an art and fashion historian is indigenous textile practices in the Americas. So, of course, my brain is going to the many ancestral practices of exchange and of gift giving that were present in different ways. They had different expressions in different indigenous communities and indigenous cultures around the Americas. So, for example, in the Andes, there are these woven bags that are called chuspas. These bags were used to carry coca leaves, which were used by people in the highlands of the Andes. They would be chewed with limestone to create, it has a calming effect basically. And so that helps people tolerate the low oxygen environment in the highlands, and it helps people walk when they are moving from one place to the other. It helps fight the cold as well. So it had some medicinal benefits to chew. And then people would also probably carry other things in the bags, and there were larger and smaller bags, and you could put one inside of the other. Anyway, the point here is that these bags were basically a central aspect or a central element of the material culture there because they were ever present in people's lives. And so one of the things that happened was that people would exchange or they would give the chuspas to other people when they were, for example, visiting, and medicines were exchanged, and alliances were made and family bonds were made. So it can be political alliances or close knit family bonds, things like that. The same kind of happened in Europe as well. For example, where in Renaissance Italy, a betrothal or a sort of marriage included a lot of exchanges between the families that were getting together, and it was a way of, again, building up relationships. So, and well, yes, there were objects that were exchanged in this, but then that also meant a sort of like family alliance and like security, and especially for the case of women, it could also be a form of financial protection in the goods that they had, which could include, for example, textiles and clothing. And then the woman could also bring textiles, especially for the home, that would in a way symbolize the care for the new family. So it goes beyond just the material exchange and into the building of long-standing relationships that can be romantic and like partner relationships. They don't have to be that kind of relationship. They can be broader relationships with other people around us. So, with friends, with clients, with business relations, with, networks broadly conceived. And so, I've been thinking a lot about this more sacred practice of gift giving as a demonstration of care and love. And what I am trying to get at here is that if we just buy whatever it is because we found it and it was cheap and we're just giving it to someone because, everyone needs socks, then that kind of takes away that relationship building history of gift giving. And I would like to encourage some more thought into it. So, for example, yes, everyone can use socks, but what kind of socks do they use? So, for example, my sister and we both have very cold feet. And so I actually sent her, I hope she's not watching this because this is going to ruin the gift for her, but I actually sent her some very cute woolen socks this year for Christmas with a friend who traveled from London to Colombia earlier this month. I'm not going to be in Colombia for the holidays. I'm actually going to spend them here in London with some of my dearest friends, and I'm very excited about that. So yeah, so I gave her that. Or I've also, speaking of my dad, I've also given him socks. And in his case are the little playful socks with nice little motifs. I brought some with actually London motifs, so like the telephone booth and the tower of the clock, and I think they might have had some like post boxes, I don't know how they are called, as well. So basically all of the London souvenirs, I gave him that last year. So, maybe think about it a little bit more. And I mean, this of course depends a lot on the types of relationships that you have and the expectations and everything. But I would like to invite you to consider also skipping a gift when you don't find something that's meaningful enough. And this is actually something that I've done with some of my friends. I'm thinking of my best friend, actually. We've been friends since we were like 4 years old, and whose birthday is next week, so I think that's why I'm thinking of her. She loves her birthday. She loves a gift. I think she's a really good gift giver. And for me, I sometimes struggle with what to give her. And so one of the things that I've started to do is that sometimes I just skip giving her something on her birthday. But then when I find something that I know she will love, I just get that and send it to her just because in the middle of the year. And I think that sometimes can be more meaningful than just giving her whatever it is that I can find on the day before her birthday. So again, it depends a lot on the expectations, and these expectations can be yours, they can be built by your family, they can be part of a dynamic with a specific person. So I know that there's only so much control that you have over that, but it's just an invitation to consider that possibility and then maybe trying to implement it in the cases that you feel that you can. And in general, I would like to invite just some thought, just stopping and thinking maybe twice about what you are getting for other people and maybe what you are getting for yourself as well. And with this, I will close. This ended up being a much longer episode than I was thinking. I told you I can get chatty. I apologize about that. But I do hope that you can take some ideas and practical strategies from this episode. And so to end, you know that I like to have this little recap with the 3 little things that you can do. In this case, I'm going to go with to shop more mindfully during this holiday season. And I know I'm biased, but I feel that this episode was full of little gems. It's hard to think about the 3 little things, but I'm going to go with it is okay to choose to shop or not to shop in this holiday season, but I would encourage you to do it keeping in mind your budget and relationships. So that's number 1. Whatever decision you make, keep in mind your actual kind of capacity and responsibilities. The second one I would say is don't feel like you need to buy for externally imposed reasons, be that having saved some money or that an item is on sale or that someone is expecting you to buy or you think someone is expecting you to buy. I think is more the case more often, things that we kind of make up in our minds. So yeah, just try to resist those external impositions that you're feeling and maybe stop, think twice about them, and only really buy if you feel that it makes sense for you and keeping in mind your budget, your responsibilities, etc., etc. And then the final one is consider what would happen if gifting was a sacred practice for you. So, what would a sacred practice mean? What would you like to bring? What's the energy? What are the ideas? What are the sort of impulses, the information that you want to bring into gifting when you think about it as a sacred practice that helps you build and maintain and care for your relationships and maybe express love? So, what would that mean? And then take that into your shopping, especially for gifts this season. I'm not really sure that these are the best 3 little things because, I mean, trying to be humble here, but I do think that there were several other good pieces of information in this episode. So, yeah. Well, thank you for listening. Happy shopping. Engage all of your senses, not just shopping, but in the entire holiday season. Remember that you are loved and you can love without having to buy a single thing. And I hope that if you choose to buy something or a lot of things, you do it as mindfully as you possibly can. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe, comment, like, share it with your people. This all means a lot to me. Your support means a lot to me. And now that I am a full-time writer, author, and podcast host, every single share, every single listen literally makes a living for me. So I really appreciate any support that you can provide. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you again in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.